Hello and welcome to Attacking Third. We are live on YouTube. We've got a weekend recap of NWSL Week 7 action for you all. What a strange weekend. Let's talk about it. Make sure you subscribe to us, like this video, and drop us your thoughts on all things Week 7 and NWSL. Let's go. Hey, everyone, and welcome into Attacking Third, a CBS Sports Soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, analyst and broadcaster for CBS Sports. We're chatting all things Week 7 recap of the NWSL on today's episode. So a quick reminder, subscribe to us on YouTube. We're also a podcast, so follow, like, and download so that you never miss out on a single episode. We're back at it, and happy Mother's Day to everyone out there who's celebrating, to everyone out there who is commemorating. We just want to send the good Mother's Day vibes because we've got a lot of mothers to celebrate or remember, however you choose to celebrate this day. How you doing, Lisa? It's good to be back at this with you.
Oh, it's so good to be back at it, and happy Mother's Day. I want to echo that. Shout out to my mom. She listens. So, hey, Mom.
Yeah, same. I should specifically shout out my own.
You should,
mother.
Sandra. I'm going to shout out your mom.
Yeah, love you, mommy. I actually just saw her, today. It's nice to
That's good.
So
yeah.
it's nice to celebrate Mother's Day like multiple times. So like for people who don't know, like Mexican Mother's Day is always like on May 10th. Like it never changes. A lot of Latin American countries like celebrate it on May 10th. So it's always fun to like have multiple Mother's Day exchanges like with my mom.
And the moms just milk it too. They're like,
hey,
yes, come hang out with me, children. Yep. They love it.
It's all good. Look, she more than deserves it. So I not to toot my own horn, but I want to say that like I think I got her a pretty good gift this year. I'm not gonna expose it and like say what it is, but I'm just gonna say that like she got a little emotional about it. So I'm pretty proud of myself.
Love that. Love a little sentimental gift. Yeah, shout out. I mean, every year I try to just level up my sisters, right? Like that's the competitive thing we do. It's like
I win Mother's Day.
Get a better gift for her. Amazing. I had that this weekend. Mother's Day is, of course, packed with NWSL. But full disclosure, I didn't watch any games live on Saturday night. I was a little preoccupied at the Lincoln Financial Field with my BFF, Taylor Swift. Had a great time. It was fantastic. I actually had to rock my merch this week.
Look at you.
Today. Well,
you're coming through with the proof. You're coming through with the proof. Absolutely. I love that for you. I love that for Taylor Swift, honestly, right? Mm-hmm. We keep hearing about all the eras. Let's maybe talk a little bit. Let's fuse those. The Mother's Day era. Maybe that's what that was this weekend across NWSL. Kind of saw a lot of different looks from moms across the league. It was nice to see the United States Women's National Team account and all the club accounts celebrating moms on the teams. Let's talk a little bit about the games when we get a chance, though.
I mean, hold on. You're talking about Mother's Day and all the things that the teams did. I don't have time to wait until we get to Racing Louisville.
Oh, let's do it.
They had
the best
yes. Social media Mother's Day shout out.
100%.
It was fantastic. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, head over to Racing Louisville's social media accounts because they did a tremendous job for their starting lineups. They had the players' moms come on and say, my daughter, number whatever, and then the player's name. It was fantastic. It brought me to tears. They had the reserves do it as well. It was really, really cool to see everyone's moms, first of all, and to see how proud they are of their daughters playing for Racing Louisville. It was so fantastic. I really loved that. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Racing Louisville because you guys made me cry.
I was definitely in my feels about that. Mm-hmm. Another funny part about that was watching the intros, and I was like, it's so funny, like watching some of these intros and literally seeing the faces of some of the players like within their moms, and you're like before like they're even saying the player name, you're like, this is so-and-so's mom.
Yeah.
That's
the dogs, all the moms like holding the dogs in the picture, like standing next to the dogs. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah,
we get moms and dogs.
Yeah, like Jalen Howell's mom, and then like Savannah DeMelo's mom. I was like, oh, there we go. There's Howell. There's DeMelo. It was very, very good. You'll love to see it. Loved the planned and prepared content and like seeing that come through. Absolutely excellent. Again, we're celebrating. We're celebrating all the way through the end of Sunday. Let's chat about some games that have just finished. There were games that happened, so we're going to chat about them. If you're joining us, you're probably just exiting the Kansas City Current versus San Diego Wave FC match. That ended 2-0 in a victory for the Wave. Lisa, I see you got your handy dandy notebook. Do we want to run it back on the picks for this one to remind the folks?
Well, we failed completely on this one. We both picked Kansas City, and we picked this game actually last during our preview. And by the ends of our previews, we're always a little getting a little stir crazy there. And we put score lines on this one.
Gosh,
I said a 1-0 Kansas City was going to get the win, and you said 2-1 Kansas City would get the win. So we're both pretty wrong on this one. San Diego came out and surprised us both.
I guess once around the mulberry bush and back again, we're sort of right on some things, but close in others. Who knows? But this was not one of them. Kansas City Current at home, good crowd, good environment, on a bit of a streak, let's just say, but didn't exactly continue in this game. I don't want to say the wheels have fallen off again, question mark, but it's almost like they're not completely back on. Like, for example, going into this game, we're looking at the starting lineups. I think that's maybe one of the things where we're looking at the surprises along the way, or maybe not surprises if you're taking a look at the Current. We saw Adriana Franch back in net for Kansas City Current to start this game. We saw Kaylin Sheridan, the typical starting goalkeeper for the Wave. And we did, just to throw it back to the preview, when we were like, hey, maybe it might come down to something like this, depending on what we will see for Kansas City Current in goal. If it's Franch versus Kaylin Sheridan, that this could be a lower scoring game because of the good goalkeepers that would be responsible for keeping it that way. But despite San Diego getting the win in this one and the 2 goals in this one of them coming in a bit of chaos, and it's ultimately credited as an old goal off of AD Franch, some chaos created by Alex Morgan. But when we're looking at this game, if it's freshest in our mind, are you convinced that this is the game that's going to get like San Diego Wave like back on track? Because they came into this one on a bit of a skid.
Yeah, I think they think it's the game that's going to get them back on track. Frankly, I wasn't like overly impressed with what San Diego gave us, though. Like the way that this game came out, yes, it's a clean sheet. And I think like when you're looking at a team like San Diego that is coming off of not just a 2-game skid, but 3-goal deficit in their last 2 games. They conceded 6 goals in 2 games, which is very unlike them and very unlike Kaylin Sheridan. I think that they look at this shutout win over Kansas City as a massive step in the right direction to kind of turn the page and get back on that side of things. Because once you start digging yourself into that hole of conceding a lot of goals, not picking up points in games, it's very easy to just kind of like hang your head down and go. But to climb yourself out of that hole, not just with a win, but a shutout, does wonders for defense confidence. And for Kaylin Sheridan, I think that's exactly what she needed at this point. Even the fact that the first goal that San Diego scores in the opening 25 minutes, right? It was around there.
Yeah.
It's credited as an own goal. So even if like that's not even like that positive, it's not like, wow, they scored a banger of a goal, like they're back doing San Diego things. It was forced by Alex Morgan, but it ends up ricocheting off the post and then off the back of AD Franch finding the back of the net. So Alex Morgan's Mother's Day goal is like in her grasp and then slips out very quickly. Apparently she doesn't care though. At the halftime they asked her and she was like, a goal's a goal, which I believe. A goal is a goal, especially when your team needs to score goals because they haven't been doing it enough. You talked about lineups, right, with both of these sides. Kansas City, we thought they were turning things around. They struggled a little bit last week against Angel City. They went down 3 goals and then fought their way back in with 2 goals. And now we see a shakeup with them because head coach for KC, Caroline Schwablum, talked about the difference between Cassie Miller in goal and AD Franch. And she said that in training, they're the same. They're doing wonderful things, fantastic stuff. And it's just, if a player's doing well, you want to consistently give them time. So we saw Cassie Miller get very consistent starts and she was getting shutouts for KC. She lets in 3 goals last week against Angel City, and now we see AD Franch in goal. And I don't think it's necessarily a knock on Cassie Miller. It's more just like, okay, you're both doing so well in training. Let's give Franch a try now. However, she lets up 2 goals against the San Diego side. But defensively, Kansas City had an entirely new structure and system than what we're used to seeing. It's been a 3-5 for Kansas City with wingback players and 3 center backs. Schwablum talked about how tactically she always wanted to go to this 4-back system, but she didn't want to do it her first 2 weeks on the job as the interim head coach. Now, week 3 under her, this is their 4th game under her, I believe. Yeah. And she has switched to this 4-back, and they look disjointed. They didn't look as cohesive as they could be defensively. And I think that Kansas City lacked so much of their attacking presence in the flanks without those wingback players, with Haley Mason, Kate Delfava really being those outside 4 and 5 players, which is like the outside back position in a 4-back. They could not get up. They didn't have the freedom to really, really push into the attack. And I think that's what hurt Kansas City. I think they're more effective with the 3-back and then 5 in the midfield with wingbacks.
No, I'm with you. You hate to see it maybe come down to the adjustment that ultimately could have been the downfall. It's weird. I'm going to keep using that word a lot. Week 7 was weird for me, y'all, and I'm going to keep that energy throughout this episode. But I mean, even with this game, I think it was a tale of 2 halves also, but for both teams, like the first half just really left something to be desired for me. I mean, you're talking kind of even in a sense where it was like attempts, total shots where it was like 5 apiece, and then you've got 2 apiece for attempts on target. Possession mostly split. It just wasn't this sort of like firecracker of a game, which I don't know. Again, in our prediction, we didn't necessarily predict that either. But I think when you look at how things end up shaking out for this team, Kansas City ultimately closing this game out with 20 shots, right? Compared to 10 from San Diego, and still even though in attempts on target 4 apiece for this team. It just the energy was, it's like they couldn't really figure out a way to try and look dangerous when they actually were in dangerous spaces. And I think if you're the Current, and I think some of the better opportunities I think was in like dead ball situations, for the Current. So it's just you're kind of, for me, it's just I'm kind of wondering, or it's like, well, is it just perhaps like we're gonna like see this in maybe an ongoing thing for the Current this year. It's like, yes, they made some good moves in the offseason, but they still have hefty injury reports coming into these weeks. Kristen Hamilton is one of those players that has been on an injury report more or less, and you wonder her unavailability and what that could produce for a Kansas City Current side. I know a lot of folks are happy that the Davina is back and we're in that camp as well, but if you're isolating a player like that, right, and kind of neutralizing them, maybe it bodes well for the opposition, and we see the Wave coming out on top with the two goals and a clean sheet, which is something that they desperately want after conceding so many in the last 2 games.
Massive for them. And I think that with Kansas City, you said it right. They had 2 set piece opportunities towards the end of the game. Of course, Davina stands over them, and they are nearly goals. Sheridan makes an incredible save on the first one. The second one goes just over. But you can't rely on set pieces and dead ball situations, especially because the way, San Diego's first goal ended up being an own goal, but that was more of a fluke. It wasn't necessarily Franch's fault, just the way the ball ricocheted for sure. The second goal, however, coming right before the halftime for San Diego, completely Kansas City's fault. They're trying to build out of the back. We're not sugarcoating things here, Sandra. It's week 7. We're just, pushing you in the dunk tank. They can't clear the ball out of the back. They win it defensively, and they play around with it. They give it right over to Kristen Westphal.
Yeah.
It's like, here you go. You're only 9 yards out. Why don't you have the ball? That's pretty much what it looked like. I felt so bad, but like, horrible. And then connects with Belle Breedy, who's about the penalty spot centrally, and who just buries it. It was rough. That was like really rough to see. And I thought they were maybe going to get one back with those set piece opportunities that they got, like a lucky chance, an opportunity. It's one of the reasons why you have a Davina on the field, because she can take set pieces like that. But nothing coming for Kansas City. San Diego squeaking out with 3 points, back on the right side of the winning column, which is where Casey Stoney wants to be.
Yeah, I think it's tough, right? I think when you've got not just new faces in the mix for either side or any team this year, but you're talking like first year players who are really kind of taking those steps and getting minutes as professionals and putting them and being asked to do this in positions that are pretty important, like specifically along the back line, for example, whether it's somebody in a Robinson or a Soto. I mean, and kind of excelling in spaces and in areas more in spite of the circumstances, and instead of sort of being given the opportunity to kind of come in and grow, right? So I think eventually there will be those moments, there will be those oopses, those whoopsies, along the way. And as the season continues to get longer and longer, maybe you might start to see them rear their heads a little bit more as we kind of we're really heading full steam ahead into this second quarter of the season. Speaking of another weird game, let's keep it on Sunday's matinee. New Jersey, New York versus Gotham FC versus Orlando Pride. This one ending in a 0-0 draw. I think when we're looking at maybe the numbers a little bit, we were just looking at some of the closing numbers and stats out of Kansas City and San Diego Wave. Can't help but look at that in this game as well. Orlando Pride putting together a good ship, going on the road, making things difficult. Can't find one in the back of the net in this game. I think by halftime, sort of felt like they were kind of attacking a bit in waves, kind of pelting a little bit, but another really strong game from Abby Smith for Gotham FC. Again, looking like that kind of perhaps under the radar biggest offseason free agent signing, maybe. Like, is that too early to say for Gotham and Abby Smith? I thought this was just another one of those games that gets a point, gets a result, and you can look to your keeper and just shake the hand and say, thanks, well done.
Massive. You and I both had Gotham getting the win in this one over Orlando. Of course, that didn't happen. We thought it was going to be the Lynn Williams show. That as well did not happen, but you're exactly right. Abby Smith, goalkeeper for Gotham, had a tremendous game. A fantastic couple of saves. And that's the thing about a goalkeeper. If they make one or two massive saves in a game, they've done their job, right? They've kept the expected goals that should go in for the opposition out of the back of the net. And that is 100% job well done by Abby Smith. One of the best saves I think I saw was on an opportunity cross into the box from Orlando Pride. Allie Watt, the substitute that got the start midweek for Orlando, because remember, Orlando is one of the teams that played Challenge Cup midweek. And Allie Watt gets a header, redirects it on frame. It's a goal. And then Abby Smith comes diving out of nowhere and just pokes it wide with her fingertips. It was really, really impressive. I screamed, I think, when that happened.
I love that you're bringing up Allie Watt in this opportunity. You see at this moment when Smith make this save, Allie Watt like reaches for her head and it's like, oh my gosh, like you could just, it's one of those moments where you're like, that was it. And yet somehow it didn't go in. It doesn't go in because of Abby Smith and her positioning and her reaction to this moment.
I mean, it was both. Like I wanted that goal for Allie Watt too, because it was really good. Like the build up from Orlando, the header, the execution of it, the timing of her header, but then the save, it was like, wow, that's just incredibly impressive as well. And for Gotham, no, Jenna Nightswanger not available in the midfield, which I think did change things a little bit for this team. I like the way she plays in the midfield. I think she does help them a little bit, but ultimately, I mean, nothing finds the back of the net. It's 0-0, and this game had weird vibes as well, Sandra.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were stretches of it too where I don't want to say it felt kind of choppy, but stretches where maybe Gotham felt that they needed to get a little more physical at times, just because they also weren't producing a ton of shots or looks in front of goal. I mean, we see Kelly Herrera get carded right around the half-hour mark and actually subbed out of this game completely before the hour mark. Maybe some different looks or adjustments from Juan Carlos Amoroso to sort of try to change things around or change the momentum a bit for this Gotham side going up against, let's be real, an Orlando team that has a lot of younger legs and want to try to get some new looks and in different looks in front of goal. Messiah Bright, I thought, had a lot of good movement in this game on and off the ball, caused some problems, but unfortunately, again, was another player not able to find the back of the net. Just sort of felt I was waiting for this moment. I was like, Gotham is on the road, or excuse me, Orlando's on the road, and they're putting together, and it looks like they're executing their game plan fairly well, but they're not connecting and back of goal. And sometimes when you don't connect on your chances, you get bitten by that. But on the other side of that, Gotham wasn't able to capitalize on that. I almost was sort of looking for, sometimes your goalkeeper kind of spearheads the level of play, and some of the saves that Abby Smith kind of came up with. I was like, all right, this is it. Like Gotham's gonna spring and make it, but it just didn't shake out that way. So they split the points in this one. So I don't know if I would say that feels right. That feels fair in this kind of game. I almost kind of feel like Orlando's gonna look back in this game and say, hey, we let some points go.
I kind of agree with them, right? But I don't think that like there was a specific moment that I was like, they should have had goals. Like they had good spells of attack and they had good moments. I mean, the Abby Smith coming up with big saves. I think there was like 2 massive ones, but ultimately like the substitutes, I don't think helped Gotham that much. Like that's maybe was a question mark around it. I think Taylor Smith in the front line for Gotham also had really good moments, but they looked so individualized, right? Like when Smith got on the ball and she could get in behind, she had an early opportunity off the post, almost hit the back of Morehouse and found the back of the net, but that didn't happen. But it was all very individualized. Like Smith didn't have a lot of support. Williams didn't have support. They weren't playing off of each other. And that made it rough. I agree, though. I think Seb Hines is going to want this one back, but they didn't drop all the points, right? That's silver lining, I guess, for both of these sides. They stay at least on the positive sides of things in terms of points after this game. Gotham getting that draw and then puts them 2 in the back-to-back plus column after this week. And Orlando is now 3 games undefeated. But just an interesting way to close out the Sunday, I think.
Yeah, take the points where you can get them, I guess, in the weird week of the season. We've got more games to recap and go through our picks. We'll be back right after a quick break.
Europe's most exciting title race continues with world-class clubs, legendary rivals, and unbelievable goals.
Brilliant! What a goal!
The Serie A lives here on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
All right, we're back. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it shaking. Let's talk a little bit about the status quo. We got teams who haven't moved at all in the table, and we've got someone else who's the new number 1 coming out of week 7. Let's talk a little bit about Racing Louisville FC versus Chicago Red Stars. Racing Louisville getting a win. Big one. 3-0 over Chicago Red Stars. Weird. And I just keep saying this was the game that set it off in motion, Lisa. This is the game that set off all of the weird energy in week 6, because I thought it was just me. And of course you want to reach out to community. I'm like, you know what? Let me hit up the socials real quick and see what everyone else is sort of, kind of feeling about this game. And it just wasn't. It was. I think I referred to this in the preview. We said like this is going to be a little bit of a wooden spoon game going into this week. Respectfully, it was 11th and 12th teams going head to head in this game, and it looked and felt like that at times throughout this match.
Yes.
Racing Louisville says we're handing it off. That belongs to you. They get on the board not once, not twice, but 3 times, and they've got the win in the regular season finally to jump them up a little bit in the standings as well. We'll go through that at the end of the game, but I think you welcome the return of a player like Savannah DeMelo. We talked about that a lot during the preview of this game. I believe you had Racing as well. I think I had this one pegged as a draw at one point.
Correct.
But you don't ever want to assume that it's going to be like this one player who's going to affect or impact all of this type of change in terms of different looks and things on the pitch. But DeMelo,
massive
everywhere.
Yeah, this is a player that, I mean, you and I talked about it every single week because she was serving her red card suspension last week and Louisville hurt without her in the midfield, without DeMelo. DeMelo now back. She had a full week of rest, full week of training as well, which helps a player like that. And she's a game changer for this Racing Louisville side because not only does she impact the game herself when she's on the ball, the passes that she makes to her players, the incredible vision she has, but the way that she sits in between the lines and can turn defenders, but the players around her elevate. This was one of the greatest games I've seen from Jalen Howe in a minute, because that player, the same year as DeMelo, they're both in their second season in the NWSL this year. Hal's had some ups and downs, whether she was dealing with injury, the way that she kind of ended last season wasn't how she wanted to end it personally. So she decided to make a change in the off season, and she worked her tail off and got trainers and got coaches and did fitness and did nutrition and turned herself around to be one of the greatest players in this league. And because of all that and the hard work, Kim Bjorkegren and the team awarding Jaelin Howe as the captain of this team in just her second year playing in the league. She's an incredibly young player, but this was one of the greatest games that we have seen from Jaelin Howe. She was growing into the game so much this year. She sat out a couple of games at the start due to injury, but now we're seeing her really finding her footing. She's playing simple, and that's what's working so well as a player in that defensive midfield role. It's wonderful to see Hal kind of taking those strides and get better. And they ultimately try to get on the board in the opening 5 minutes, right? Louisville, and then gets called back on an offside goal, but it didn't matter. They ultimately get 3. It was pretty open, fast paced this side. And Chicago, they struggled a little bit defensively, building out. I mean, what'd you see from the Chicago side?
I just saw more of the same, which is just a team that is playing an absolutely frustrating season. I mean, the Red Stars it just sort of feels like the Red Stars are having the season that people anticipated them to have last year, essentially. I think you have some examples of two teams who are trying to navigate a regular season in light of club sales. Portland Thorns, we'll talk about them soon, but they're a team that's on a bit of a skid there, and they haven't had a win in the last 3 games. And we've got Chicago Red Stars who just can't seem to get a win anywhere, really. They pick up their 5th loss of the season, have 1 win, 1 draw at this point. I think you have all of the off the pitch things that are out of their control, and I think you add in an on the pitch thing. No little thing. We're talking about Mallory Swanson, and they just don't have a lot of answers right now. And I think you look to your coaching staff to try to provide some of those answers, and it's just not matching, on the pitch, unfortunately. And I think when you have, defensive pieces, who are making their way back. I mean, we're looking at Casey Kruger, who's in her first season back after, from maternity leave, Trina Davidson off of, an ACL rehabilitation. And you're still asking this team at times to sort of play in this 3-back and not really getting midfield support. I think that gets frustrating. I think that gets tough as a player mentally to be asked to go out there week to week and know you are just going to be constantly overloaded. And, it's tough. It's tough. I can't imagine that, you're going to get to a point in the season where you can no longer sort of say like it's early and we need to try to work on this and we need to, get back to fundamentals, et cetera, et cetera. 7 weeks of the season are gone. We're in the full swing of the second quarter of the season. Eventually in a few weeks here, we're going to talk about the halfway point.
Oh gosh.
And I don't know if there's a lot of answers for the Chicago Red Stars team. In light of all of the others, right, that are happening off the pitch for this team. So I think it's another tragic example of, lack of support, lack of resources, just a lack of unknowns, really. Maybe not so much the resources and the support, but there's just real question marks around everything else around the team. And unfortunately, you never want to see that, bleed into performances. But that's a tough loss. That's a tough loss on the road. I think, you don't have, players don't want to talk after a game like that, and rightfully so. I believe it was just Chris Petroselli who was available for post game. I think in that, and I think when you're the head coach in that position, right, you make yourself available, obviously. But those are tough. I think all of that is very telling. So I don't know if there's a point where you sort of say like, oh, let's try to get a result and let's try to get a win, and that's really going to turn things around. But I think you just sort of have to try to listen to the players when they're trying to be honest and when they're trying to be open. And just even off of that loss against Gotham with Alyssa Nair being available post game, kind of alluding to that, saying this was an incredibly challenging year for the team.
Yeah.
In a number of ways. So
I mean, there are so many different ways, right? Off the pitch, on the pitch, the injuries that they've suffered, the questions that they've asked of other players. It was rough. It's kind of rough to watch this game, rough to watch Chicago fall apart this way as well. Like you never want to see players not be able to perform at their highest or perform really well. And we just did not see that at all from Chicago. On the flip side, I think Louisville, they had some individual performances that were really impressive because Louisville ends up, of course, 3 goals, but the way they come about is it's a forced own goal. Alyssa Nair, it's a shot that it's a penalty kick actually from Savannah DeMelo, and Monahan ends up drawing the penalty kick, and DeMelo hits it off the post, and it hits off Alyssa Nair's back, actually very similar to like AD Franch's own goal that happened for Kansas City, except one was run of play and one was a penalty kick. The second goal for Racing Louisville also coming off of a penalty kick. This one by Wang Shuang, her first goal in the NWSL. Massive to see from her, that coming in the stoppage time at the end of the first half. And then at the very, very tail end of the game, the 89th minute, Parker Goins gets the third and final goal for Racing Louisville, just to kind of seal the deal at the end of the game. I mean, tough to watch, I know, for Chicago fans. Great for Louisville fans, though. They were excited to have the lavender and mint get the win.
For sure. I think teams that, again, at this phase and stretch of the season, if you're a bottom half table team, not even like a last or second to last place team, if you're just like a bottom half table team, you look for those games that'll be that kind of springboard for you moving forward and maybe try to take that leap. And I think, having Shayna Matthews available during that Kansas City Current, that one win that they had, I think obviously showed some promise, but then you have Racing Louisville, who's able to get a win like this, and maybe this will be the springboard for them, and they can try to continue to go ahead and build off that. But it's going to come down to executing tactics on the pitch, and we'll see if they'll continue to build on that moving forward. So we've got Chicago, unfortunately, still at the bottom of the standings in this one, but we've got a new number 1 when we're talking about the league table. Talking about the Washington Spirit, baby. Number 1, a 1-0 win over Angel City FC. But why this way? What a game. It comes down to VAR. It comes down to a penalty kick, and Ashley Hatch delivers. Absolutely. Talk about pressure.
Totally.
Talk about pressure. Stoppage time. That is not an easy penalty to convert. That is not an easy place to execute a penalty, but she goes ahead and does it after 90 minutes plus of a scoreless affair between these two sides. I enjoyed this game. I think there may be stretches of it where folks were like, this is like getting a little out of control. Maybe the officiating is trying to get involved a little bit out of control. But listen, it gave to me. It gave NWSL After Dark.
Yeah, I mean, I liked this game for what it's worth. I'm really happy for Washington to stay undefeated. Frankly, you and I both had Washington Spirit getting the win over Angel City. Just something about Rodman getting a full midweek rest, as with Andy Sullivan. Washington had that Challenge Cup game last week, and those two players did not play. But Washington in this game, they have only conceded 5 times in 7 games. And to get if anything, Aubrey Kingsbury can hang her hat on that, right? That the stingy defense, I think Staub has done a fantastic job, as she usually does, in the center back role. Shout out to Tara McKeown, because as a forward converted into a center back is impressive. But Mark Parsons has laid down a defensive foundation for this side, and then given the front line a lot of freedom. And when you say Trinity Rodman and Ashley Sanchez, you have freedom to create. It creates magic. Now, we didn't get to see all that magic during this game, right? But I think there's pieces of it there.
Lisa, 7 weeks in, Washington Spirit number 1, already have more wins than they did last year. Call me crazy, but it's almost like selling the team and going through the adversity and trying to come out of that on the other side is helpful. Crazy. Am I crazy?
Not crazy at all. So this team goes from winning the NWSL championship in 2021 to only getting 3 wins in 2022 to being week 7 undefeated, top of the table Washington Spirit team right
We
now.
love to see it. I love to see it.
4 wins on the year for them. I mean, massive, massive. And the style that it came down to, as you talked about in the final minutes of this game, but it wasn't for lack of effort, right? There was an opportunity. I think Sanchez had 1 or 2 really good shots. Didi Hadachich coming up with massive saves on a couple of those, just getting fingertips, parrying the shots wide because, man, Sanchez can rip a shot or 2. Amber Brooks ripped one that looked like it could have knuckled into the side netting. There was opportunities, but ultimately,
I loved the defense in this game.
Yeah.
I feel like you and I could speak about that, a bit more. I think in the preview ahead of this game, right? You look at Alyssa Thompson, the rookie for Angel City, Savannah McCaskill getting a bit more freedom with the arrival of Julie Ertz. And then we're looking at the Spirit with Rodman and Sanchez and Hatch. And we're just like, man, this game is going to be fire in the attacking third. And that the defense flipped the script. They flipped the script. It was scoreless for so long. And we have to absolutely shout out Andy Sullivan with the halftime check-in because there was a lot of energy that was being, exerted on the pitch when you're trying to contain and isolate some things. And Andy Sullivan said, hey, no problems over here because we're fit as hell.
I know.
She said, we're fit as hell. And look what ended up happening. Ridiculous moments down the stretch. Look, for Angel City as well. Sarah Gordon is back.
Oh,
stop, period. Okay, Sam Staub reminding the people of what they may have missed out from her in 2022 with her distribution in her left foot and coming in clutch along the way. I loved this game on the defensive side of things. And unfortunately, it ended with high drama. Folks out there, saying, hey, VAR is not always correct, or having some feelings about it. But there's also folks who are like, listen, that's what VAR is there for, to make sure that you give the extra look and to pull through with the call.
So this happened, right? So the way that it happened, stoppage time at the end of this game, there's a shot that's taken by Marissa Shiva, I think, right at the top of the 18-yard box. And Vignola is defending, and the ball kind of hits her upper body, and her hands are above her head. So then the ball rolls up and hits her arms. And immediately it's called a penalty kick. Then they go through a very, very, very lengthy VAR review to determine if it is and what's going to happen. Ultimately, it's determined as a handball inside the box penalty kick given to Ashley Hatch. She buries it in the 94th minute of this game. So incredible goal. That's how Washington gets the win. But this is a handball. I think it is a handball. It is a handball. And the fact that the official caught it in real time and got it correctly, I think is super impressive. No, maybe it's not fair, but this sport isn't always fair. Her hands are above her head. They're in an unnatural position and it stops the ball from moving forward. That's a handball 110% of the time. And because of this goal, Ashley Hatch then gets her 5th on the year. She takes the lead as goal scorer of the NWSL with 5 goals in 7 weeks, and the Golden Boot race is on.
It's early, but it's definitely on. You like it. I love it. We've got more games to recap, though. Okay, so stick around with us. We're going to close out the weekend right after a quick break.
2 teams in control of their own destiny.
Miraculously, impossibly, beyond their dreams, their expectations.
It's the penultimate round of the UEFA Champions League on CBS and streaming live on Paramount+.
All right, let's close out the weekend. Shout out to everyone joining us. We appreciate you all joining us live on YouTube. Thanks for hanging out with us. Shout out to all the moms in the chat, or the people who have moms in the chat, people who are celebrating motherhood in the chat. Give us hearts. Give us hearts. We want hearts in the chat. It could be for Mother's Day. It could be for just hanging out together, but I want to see it in the chat. Let's close it out. Let's make sure we have a good time with these final 2 games. North Carolina Courage getting the win over OL Reign 1-0 in this one. Lisa, this is another one I think that I dropped. I was like, look, OL Reign's going to have enough. And they're going to get the win. That didn't happen. That did not happen.
Nope.
I have no problem coming out here and exposing myself.
Yeah, you and I both had OL Reign. Both had OL Reign taking the win in this one, and North Carolina does it.
OL Reign said 6 hours, a 6-hour flight, can't do it. And unfortunately, narrow scoreline in this one. All it's needed is one from Tyler Lucy, and North Carolina get all 3 points against OL Reign at home. You love to see that for North Carolina Courage. I think, look, this maybe comes down to some tactical game planning. Sean Nahas, I think this was a good game. This was, I think, I don't want to say it was a put the league on notice kind of game quite yet, because we've got, again, a narrow scoreline here. But you've got a top tier team. You've got a team that you're going up against who's ultimately considered a contender in 2023. They were the 2022 Shield winners. Mm-hmm. And you say, look, this is also one of the deepest teams in the league. When we're looking at OL Reign and Laura Harvey and the personnel that she has.
And it's the team that had the least amount of off-season change.
I think you can maybe try to run it back, but sometimes in a long season, you hit some bumps. And sometimes in a weekend that is full of weird stuff, you get weird moments. And maybe this is one of those. Maybe the team that is going through the rebuild or the retool gets the win over the team that is the contender. Right. So I think that was part of the, maybe we're looking at some of that energy in this one as well. I think when we're looking at the attacker or the offense on either side of the pitch here, kind of even at times. The goal, we have to talk about maybe how this goal occurs. Again, we're talking about a bit of a oops, mental lapse question mark. What do you think on this goal, Lisa?
Yeah, I think a little bit of an oops for sure, the way that OL Reign gives it away. But it's, 2 claps for North Carolina because they're the ones that capitalize on it. It's Madsen who picks up the ball and deep in the defensive half, in the middle of the field, basically, Madsen has it, and she has her head up, and she understands that Tyler Lucy is on the far side, and Lucy was ready to run. She is ready to get in behind. And because North Carolina is so deep defensively, it just allows for so much space for Lucy to run. And Madsen plays this really beautiful ball between Sam Hyatt and Lou Barnes in the back line, and splits the seam of the defenders with the pass. Tyler Lucy cuts on the outside, and she just gets in behind the back line. And really, Lucy makes it look easy on this one because Tullis Joyce tries to come out and close down the space, but it's just too much and too little. It's too late. Lucy finds the back of the net. Yeah, a mistake defensively on OL Reign as they give away that ball, but North Carolina was knocking on the door. In the opening 15 minutes, Caroline found the back of the net, and ultimately it ends up being called back due to Lucy actually being offside. She didn't touch it, but it was a distraction for the goalkeeper on a cross that curls into the back post. So it gets called back. But North Carolina had that taste in their mouth because they celebrated pretty good after that one. Everyone thought it was going to hold, and then ultimately gets called back thanks to a little bit of VAR. And then another one, but right by Caroline, right before half, finds the back of the net, but that one gets called back. Fantastic. Ultimately, Lucy does it, though. 34th minute, she gets the goal.
Look, we're talking week 7 and we're chatting about off-season moves and giving appropriate props and dap to teams who made these good moves. And we're like I alluding to earlier in the episode, talking about Abby Smith is maybe under the radar key off-season free agent signing for Gotham, but maybe for North Carolina, engaging in a trade for Tyler Lucy or getting Emily Fox as part of 2 good pieces in your front line and in your back line to navigate this long season. I mean, you knew they were going to have an incredible capable talent in Caroline, even though she's a young player, feel like still getting acclimated and adjusted to certain levels of play in the league, but you knew that you had a special talent here. So who else is going to be that extra outlet when you have a unique and special talent? And maybe in these kind of early weeks, still somewhat that we're starting to see that in someone like Lucy. So I'm here for it. I mean, if you're looking at maybe a week 7 upset, maybe this was it for some folks.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening. I mean, but North Carolina, I don't want to undercut them because they're impressive and they're pulling some wins out and they're putting pieces together, right? They're on this almost slow build that they have, but this is their third straight week picking up points in the regular season, their third straight game. Yeah, I guess a little bit of the upset, but it's not to discourage North Carolina by any means. I think they're a very impressive team.
No, I think they'll pick up some more, and I think they'll keep upsetting some others along the way for sure. Let's chat about the final game that we're going to recap here. We're talking about Houston Dash versus Portland Thorns FC. Houston, again, Lisa, talking about maybe games during the season where they're going to be the springboard for some teams who are still kind of trying to figure some things out, still trying to solidify those team identities and present a level of play on the pitch. Is this the one for Houston because they get all 3 points 2-1 over Portland?
Yeah, big for Houston to get this win and get these points over Portland. You had Portland getting the win. I had a draw in this match happening.
Love to be wrong.
Same, because this was a very, very good, important win for Houston. They needed this win. They really did. They were coming off back-to-back losses. They hadn't picked up a win in quite a long time in this regular season. And now as they go out against Portland Thorns, they host this one in Houston, a comeback win as well. Like this had all the pieces of a really good game for Houston because they concede in the first half around the 34th minute on a goal from Rocky Rodriguez. That was fantastic. The assist from Olivia Moultrie. Holy cow, kid can play.
The link up was delightfully disrespectful. I mean,
oh my gosh.
I was like, Olivia, you've got elders on the pitch here. Respect them. And she said, no, I'm just going to cut it right through and make this happen. And it was just great to see that level of awareness and IQ from both these players to know that they can combine like that. And it was the kind of goal and link up that sort of made it feel like this was going to go in the direction of Portland, but that's not what ended up panning out.
Especially the way the first 30 minutes of this game was happening because Portland had good sustained pressure. It was pretty back and forth. They were putting the Houston defense on their heels a little bit and forcing them to make some changes. And then when this goal happens by Rocky Rodriguez, it's Olivia Moultrie picks it up in mid-ish field. It was a corner kick, I believe, a set piece. The ball gets cleared out halfway to Moultrie, and Moultrie finds Rocky Rodriguez between a hairpin. That's how wide this gap was that Moultrie was able to feed this ball in the air. She drives it at Rodriguez, and Rodriguez captures it. She controls, brings it down, volleys, finds the back of the net. It was really, really good. But Houston says, hey, there's still a whole other half of football to play, and we're ready. We are ready for this one because they come out in the second half. Ebony Salmon playing that striker. She's starting to finally come into her own. She ultimately is the catalyst for the first goal that Houston gets on the board because she picks up the ball inside the box. She turns to her right. She's inside the 6-yard box, and she makes a massive shot. It's a bullet of a shot that forces Bigsby to fully outstretch and parry this ball wide. But because of how hard it's hit, Bigsby keeps it in play, and Joelle Anderson is wide open. Yep. There was no Portland defenders for miles around her, and she just taps it into the back of the net. So that's the opening goal for Houston that equalizes it. And then Ebony Salmon gets one of her own in the 71st minute, her first goal of the season, first goal with Houston this year. She was knocking on the door. It was about time that Salmon got a goal.
I hear you. 7 weeks, right? We're talking about weird energy of week 7. No Diana Ordonez in this game. Was it meant to be that Salmon finally gets this goal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Is is it a like if this ends in a 1-1 draw and like Sammy doesn't get the breakthrough on goal without Ordonez on the pitch, is there cause for worry? Do you think like is it like how is this team still not gelling quite
I
yet?
would say a little bit, yes,
Yeah.
because I think that Ordonez shines much brighter than Salmon when they are on the pitch together.
Mhm.
And Salmon needed a confidence booster, right? She needed this game where she gets an assist, essentially. It's not counted as an assist, but she forces the shot that gets the equalizing goal for Houston. She has a number of really good shots that miss just wide. There was one right before the goal she got that was just nearly wide, and then she finds the back of the net. So now her confidence has just skyrocketed. And if her confidence is incredibly high, then you put her on the pitch with Ordonez, whose confidence is high, as it should be. Maybe they can create some magic together. And that's what Sam Lady's been waiting for to happen. That's what everyone's been waiting to happen, and it hasn't yet. So I think it's good that she found a little bit of personal success and individual success this week.
I think the celebration, right? The body language says it all. Just sort of like finally. Kind of moment. Maria Sanchez like running to try to be the first person to celebrate, with her at providing the assist, continuing to sort of always be active on the ball in wide areas and wide spaces. And finally, these two combine and link up for a goal, which is not something they were unfamiliar with in 2022. And finally, it comes to life in week 7 for them. And it's ultimately these two connecting for the game winner and all 3 points. So maybe this type of performance can springboard them and maybe get them back on track to, kind of get back to those early weeks when we're seeing them get those results.
This was a springboard week.
Maybe I'm calling it the weirdo week, and maybe it's a springboard week.
I think it's a springboard week for Houston, for Racing Louisville. We also gave them a bit of a springboard in their win over Chicago. Yeah, that's what it was. It was weird because it was a lot of springboard action happening.
Maybe, perhaps. Well, what does it mean for Portland? Maybe we'll see. This is a team that hasn't gotten a win in 3 weeks now. So winless in 3. Kind of a dip in results for a team that started really, really hot to start the regular season. And of course, with the ebbs and flows of a season, that means that the standings got flipped on the script. Let's run them down for you in case you're paying attention. After week 7, Washington Spirit is your new number 1. Oil Rain at number 2. Gotham FC jumping up to number 3. Portland Thorns dropped to number 4. San Diego Wave in 5th place. North Carolina Courage at number 6. Rounding out the bottom half of the table is Houston Dash, number 7. Angel City at number 8. Racing Louisville at number 9. Orlando Pride at number 10. Kansas City Current 11. And Chicago Red Stars holding it way down at number 12. That's all we've got today on Attacking Third. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your Sunday evening and joining us and listening to A3. We appreciate you. If you like Attacking Third, make sure you download, follow, and listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts. You can watch us too. Go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube so that you get alerts for whenever we go live at youtube.com/Attacking Third. And we'll be back this week with even more NWSL content for you all. So stay tuned. For Sandra, Herrera, and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.